Hey everyone, we're back with another edition of the WFNY podcast live on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, like Sunday, anywhere you want to talk Browns, we're live. Today I am joined by Jake Burns. It seems like it wasn't too long ago, but it was 4 weeks ago already that Jake joined us. Jake, formerly of WFNY, now with the OBR. We're just to recap the third quarter of the Browns season, a quarter that the Browns went 4-0. I still can't. Like, the Browns are not only 9-3, but they just won 4 games in a row too. Jake, what do you have to say about the Browns?
That it's fun, right? That things aren't always going perfectly, but they're finding ways to win games, and in the myriad of different ways, in that mix of different ways, it's a lot of fun to see a team figure out how to win, right? Like, there's a level to which we've been talking about this for a long time, and it was for the longest time they let some games slip away that they should have won because they didn't know how to win, and then now it's a matter of they're figuring out how to win. Now they got to figure out how to win prettier, right? Like, that's the thing. So we'll get there. There's end of game situations that have been uncomfortable when you think about maybe Philly, or you think about the end of Jacksonville, or the end of this most recent game with Tennessee, is that they haven't been the big blowout finish that everybody might yearn for, but they're winning games, man. They figured out how to do it. They have a relatively trustworthy formula. They can deviate from it occasionally when they need to, but the formula is the formula, and they're winning, and that is all that matters. So it's really good to see.
Yeah, they're winning. Like we've always been saying in football, especially in the NFL, a W is all that matters. It doesn't matter who it's against. It doesn't matter how you get it. As long as it says W in the schedule, that's all that matters.
Yeah, there's no doubt about that. That's obviously what is the bottom line business, man, and that's checking the box for wins at the end of the day. So hopefully they can continue on that trend and win enough of these last 4 to put themselves into the playoffs. We'll see how it all shakes out, but they're in great position right now.
Absolutely. Joe and I have been talking after the Browns games when we do our Instant Insights podcast edition that winning ugly kind of is good for this team because it allows them to not only win, but it allows good talking points and things to look back on for Kevin Stefanski. So, like, say if they blew out Tennessee, their heads could be getting a little too big, but they didn't blow them out, even though it felt like a blowout. It was only a 6-point win. So Kevin Stefanski can go back, watch the film, be like, hey, you have to do this and this and this in order to change, but they still won. Years past, the Browns would be learning from losses. It's a lot easier to learn from a win than it is from a loss.
Yeah, I mean, it certainly is always easier to learn from winning, and it makes the locker room a more enjoyable place, makes your coaching staff more enjoyable, the players, all of it. And it's all a mixture of that stuff. But you're right, there should be a desire for more. There should never be a head that's too far out in front and leading to some mental mistakes, all that stuff. I think we saw a little bit of that with the Oakland game, where it just kind of felt like they didn't show up. They were flat, all the above. Hopefully you don't see that this weekend. Hopefully you don't see that over the course of the coming few games in New York. But you never know. It's still the NFL. And really, Josh, a big thing is the NFL is a motivation business, man. Like, how can you take whatever piece of, whether it's your why you wake up in the morning, or whether it's your football motivation, whatever, bulletin board material, could be anything. The why has to be important. And if you let down your guard, or you presume something is going to be accomplished, it won't. So you have to really keep driven, keep passionate, keep level-headed. And I think Kevin Stefanski does a nice job of that with his guys.
The whole motivation thing is actually a really good point. I mean, I know for Ohio State football, they release a hype motivational trailer every week. You don't see them doing that for Ohio State basketball. Same with the Browns. You see players in the huddle prior to the game trying to hype up other players. You don't see the Cavs doing that. You don't see Ohio State on the basketball court doing that. So I've never really thought of it that way, but motivation and confidence is a huge thing in football.
It is, especially in the NFL, man, where some of these guys get, you're getting paid a lot of money, you're trying to avoid injuries. There's a lot of things going on. And, sometimes you presume that just because maybe your record's better than the opposing sideline, that they're not also professional football players with, the same kind of driving factors behind guys trying to make money and prove themselves and make a name for themselves. And And you're right, man. Any sport, and it goes back to your younger years of playing sports when you and I were playing or whatever. It's what can I do that makes me try a little bit harder? What can I do that makes me, proves to this person that I care a little bit more than they do? And sometimes in the NFL, I think that can really be a big part of things. It's a motivation business. How can you get motivated to want something a little bit more than the opposing team? And I think that's something any coach at any level is looking for. What little things can I do to motivate my team? What thing was said in the public that I can use and spin and make my guys feel like they're being disrespected so they care a little bit more? And that stuff's been out there for the Browns forever, right? Like every prognosticator hates on the Browns. It's just natural. I mean, when you franchise lost for 20 years, there's plenty of things that Kevin Stefanski could grab a hold of and latch onto and make their thing. And I'm sure there are some of those things behind closed doors that we don't know about. We get to see the little post-game speeches sometimes, and those are really cool. A nice snippet into what's going on in the locker room. Sweet. Yeah, they're cool. Yes. They're great. 20, 25 seconds of him and how his guys are, and it's raw, and you don't have anything filtered there. I think it's really cool that they give a real look at it. But there's more going on. There's position coaches talking with their guys and meetings and different things, and collectively the defense gets together, collectively the offense gets together, and all of that kind of filters into what their unified vision is. And I'm sure Kevin does a great. He seems to have a grasp for motivating his guys, because that's so important at the NFL level, is motivating your guys 16 weeks in a row, right? Like is getting them to buy into your vision, and then getting your coaches to buy into your vision, and then motivating everybody all at the same time. So a lot of fun watching those little pieces of how they operate together. And listen, Kevin's done a great job with everything. So, and I'm sure this is a big game. You talk about the Ravens are coming into Cleveland, and it's kind of their big game. If they lose this game, it puts a big damper on the rest of the way. They'd have to go 3-1, and then they need a significant amount of help to get into the playoffs if the Ravens lose this game. So this is their kind of all-in game. Their backs against the wall game, and it's the same for Cleveland too. I mean, if you look at their schedule, it was a big part of this Tennessee game too, where it is Cleveland hasn't beat anybody. They can't beat any real playoff contenders. They can't beat anybody, especially on the road. And Baker stinks in prime time. There's all that stuff happening right there, man, and they know it. They latch onto it, and Baltimore will obviously have a big motivating factor going into this game. And teams, when you look at guys who bet professional football for a living, a lot of them talk about that. Which team has this all-in factor? Which team cares about it more? Who does this game matter to more? There's a level of the Browns too, man, where Kevin Stefanski's first game these guys got together, they went to Baltimore and got their butt whipped. And everybody thinks that they can't beat Baltimore, they can't beat Pittsburgh in their own division. And there's a huge motivating factor going on there. So I expect those two to balance each other out in terms of both teams really caring. I think it'll mean an immense amount to the Browns. And obviously they're still alive, long shot here, but they're still alive in the AFC North section of things too. So it's good, man. It's really cool because they got a bunch of guys that haven't won anything at the NFL level. And when you haven't won anything and you start to get those tastes of what it's like to win at the NFL level, you start to get hungry for more and more of it. So hopefully we see them come out with their hair on fire this weekend, or on Monday. Sorry.
Yeah. It's a Monday night football game in December that is significant for the Browns playoff hopes, not for like draft season, nothing. It's just weird. And speaking of the Ravens, who would have ever thought after that 38-6 thrashing in week 1 that this week's game would be more of a must win for Baltimore than it would be for Cleveland? That I would have, there's no shot. I would have said there's no way that's possible. 14 weeks after that week 1 thrashing, that it would be a must win for, well, I guess it's not really a must win, but they kind of have to win.
Oh no, they have to win this game. They really do. If they win this game or if they lose this game and go 3-1 the rest of the way out, they're like 70% chance of making the playoffs. If they lose this and go 2-2, they're done. They have to win. They're viewing this as an absolute must win. You can't go 7-6 and then try to hope and pray that a couple have. Miami's got a relatively manageable schedule the rest of the way. You don't want the situation for them. It makes their odds really tough if they drop this game. So, Baltimore will do everything in their power, everything they can, trick plays, anything they can to put points on the board. And I especially expect it to be highly motivated football from both sides because Baltimore's getting a little healthier, it seems like, at least getting some of their players back. But, yeah, you're right, man. When those teams started, it looked like Baltimore was just going to keep that factory rolling they had last year, dominate the regular season. For some reason, they have slowed down. I've not watched much Baltimore football since that thrashing week 1. But yeah, from everything we gather, from everything on the outside, you people that cover them that I follow, Lamar has been far more inconsistent than he was in week 1. Has trended kind of regression a little bit going on there within that offense, and frustration has happened. with Greg Roman, their offensive coordinator. I watched most of last night's game, and there really are a little bit of an inconsistent. They're lacking threats at the skill position players from the wide receiver spot that's kind of hurting them. So it is certainly a winnable game. The Browns should not be intimidated. I think there was a little bit of intimidation going on week one for Baltimore, having returned so many similar faces and being so ready to go, while Cleveland was trying to manufacture everything. They're a group that had just met, in a sense, weeks before, completely new systems on both sides of the football. They have changed a lot about themselves since week one, and they are supremely confident that they can play these big games with these good teams. So I think you'll see a different version of the Browns, one that is a lot more prepared. Is certainly on defense will be a lot less caught off guard by what Baltimore does offensively too. So it'll be a group of guys that have seen them and all of that. And it's not a terrible game to not have Denzel Ward either. I'm okay with him missing this one and kind of getting right to finish up the season, maybe even taking the two in New York and kind of being ready for week 17 too. We'll see about that. That way out in front of ourselves. But yeah, good situation for Cleveland against a team that I'm sure they're hungry to get after.
Yeah, we were talking in the WFMI Slack. I'd rather not have Denzel Ward this week and have him like as close to 100% as possible for the final 3 games or in the final 2 games or final game of the regular season, then have him be like 70% this week and then still had that lingering issue, especially if with the playoffs on the horizon for the first time in who knows how long. We have to start talking playoffs for the Browns. So I'd rather have Denzel for the playoff run than have him for a week 15 matchup or week 4, whatever week it is, against Baltimore.
Yeah, especially if they somehow stumble into maybe playing KC, if they open the whole thing or something like that, where Kansas City maybe doesn't get the bye and they have to play the first week of the play. Yeah, you want to have Denzel for those games that matter most, and especially with calf injuries, man. I know we talked last time when Wyatt Teller was going through it. It's so sensitive, and they can be quickly aggravated, and you just have to be extremely careful with them. So I prefer they err on the side of caution with that one. I'm sure they will err on the side of caution because offensive linemen have to do more push pull, but Denzel's got a lot of quick change, quick burst, all that stuff. His quick twitch stuff is a little bit more difficult for what he's doing. So I'm sure they're being careful, and we'll see. We haven't heard that he's quite on his way back yet, but he'll be a vital cog to get back for them.
Speaking of cornerback injuries, I haven't really kept up, to be honest, with Greedy Williams. Have you heard anything at all? Like, is he out for the season? It's such a weird issue.
Yeah, he's got nerve damage in that shoulder, so that nerve damage is causing him to have issues with range of motion. It's causing him to have issues with feeling and in that shoulder and the function of his arm. And there's a lot of concern about the long-term safety of that shoulder. So I don't think we'll see him this year. And there's some that believe that his career could be in jeopardy. We're just gonna have to see how it shakes out. I'm not saying that personally, but I've heard that mentioned before. So I've completely removed him from the picture in this season.
All right. So speaking of Denzel and injuries, guys stepping up the last 4 weeks. Olivier Vernon, Kareem Hunt, even I forget when Nick Chubb came back. Was it within the last 4? I've gotten lost with time. Even I know OBJ has been out, but Rashard Higgins has stepped up. Jarvis Landry has stepped up big time last few weeks. How about, I know it's cliche, but the next man up has been key for the Browns, especially during this 4-game win streak.
Yeah, all of those guys, right? Nick Chubb comes back. Kareem played well, and it was really a lot of Kareem on his own. Dearness Johnson didn't do as much when Nick was out as I thought he might. So Kareem carried that burden for a good portion of the time that Nick was out, did fantastic. Obviously, Rashard Higgins has been phenomenal, stepping into the role that OBJ left. He's done well. Donovan Peoples-Jones has done well when he's needed to be called on. Kadero Hodge, too. That guy just catches first downs, man. When he's been playing, I know he missed last week, but the week before, Jacksonville, he's a vital part of that. Couple big catches, had a big catch down the left sideline against Philadelphia. So he's been a very important piece of the picture. Their wide receivers collectively have stepped up. And 2, not many people have talked about it, but Kevin Johnson, since he's come back early in the season, has done really admirably in the slot. And when they've needed to bump him outside these last few weeks without Denzel, he's done a nice job anchoring the outside corner role opposite Terrence Mitchell when he's needed to. And they've pieced together a slot defender between Tavera Thomas, and I think Robert Jackson's had some snaps there too. So they've done a really nice job holding the fort down, and they'll continue to be challenged this week because they'll put them in some difficult positions. But yeah, really impressed with how they've done. And two, I wrote about Olivier Vernon because he had a really nice resurgence there with Miles out and had another nice game this past week. I think he's just an important part of what they do defensively, edge setting, all that stuff. And they've had a nice contribution from their interior. Larry Ogunjobi, I think, has had a nice uptick of late, playing better football. And Sheldon Richardson's playing, I think, borderline Pro Bowl football, and the interior has been so important for them, creating some turnovers, rotating positionally, getting out, doing some different things. And Adrian Claiborne's been a nice professional guy, man. Like he's not wowing in the stat sheet or anything. He hasn't had a big blow up Adrian Claiborne game like we've seen in the past seasons where he's had one or two. But he's been a nice player that when Miles was out for a couple of weeks, took a majority of the snaps in the role that he left and did well. He put pressure on the quarterback, and he didn't have any crazy plays, but he did well enough, and that's a nice welcome presence for a franchise that's been so thin of depth over the past few years. So, yeah, the next man up motto has been real. They've done well. They've handled it. They've overcome some big injuries. We'll see if they can keep overcoming without Denzel before they get him back. The safety room has obviously been dinged up all season, and they kind of have just done well enough. So the next man up has been the most challenging thing for the defense, obviously, I would say. And they just have pieced together enough, and they're creating enough turnovers and doing just enough to win football games.
Yeah. Speaking of Rashard Higgins, I'm going to plug for anyone listening, Jake wrote a fantastic piece on Rashard Higgins and the Browns. Rashard Higgins proven to be a key part of Brown's future at wide receiver, and he wrote that on the 7th. And today, the Browns sources have said, I forget who reported it exactly, that the Browns and Rashard Higgins are working on a long-term extension. I completely agree with it. It's so like Rashard Higgins. I know you wrote about it in your piece too. Like, I don't get how that connection is so good. But him and Baker have something going on where it's just like Higgins is a reliable target. Baker trusts him, and Rashard makes plays when he needs to. I mean, it's as simple as that.
Yeah, he has a good feel for how Rashard runs routes. He has a good feel for the timing, the pace at which he runs most of his routes. You very rarely see Baker miss Higgins in a way that is uncatchable. Like, you just don't see. Like, you could probably rack your brain and think about it, and I don't have many recollections of him missing Rashard Higgins in an ugly fashion, just completely over his head or underthrown. Like, it just doesn't happen. The two have a sort of sympathetic thing going on where they just know where to look for the football, when to look for the football, the pace at which to deliver the football. All of it is good. And sometimes you can't really put a price tag on that. Sometimes it's just it's not easily explainable. The same way some of the things with Odell and Baker on the other side are not explainable either. This is the same situation. And they do have an innate thing where they're out when Baker's making plays outside of the pocket, he's able to find him when he needs to as well. So it's just a good fit. We don't need to overanalyze it. We can look at data and talk about Rashard and Baker and their passer rating when he's targeting him, and it's great and all of that. But the data doesn't need to tell me what the eyes can easily explain. Like, they just get each other, and there's no reason to question it. And I'm happy to hear that the Browns are talking about paying him a little bit of money. Doesn't need to break the bank. You don't need to kill yourself over paying Rashard. And I'm sure Rashard would say the same thing. He doesn't want crazy money, but he does want an opportunity to get some money for what he's doing because he's valuable. So I hope they end up taking care of him in the right way. And I'm sure it can make sense. But you can't pay everybody. Like, they got Odell making big money. They got Jarvis making big money. That position group is making big money in terms of cap percentage. So I do think in the near future there are going to be some tough decisions made, but for now, I would try to find a way to pay Higgins something similar to Kareem Hunt and get him some money in his pocket for what he's doing and keep him with Baker Mayfield.
Yeah, I mean, I'm all for it. I wasn't the biggest because he was healthy. I don't know what was going on last season with the Freddie Kitchens stuff, but Rashard Higgins was a healthy scratch a lot, and he just, I don't know if he was in the doghouse or if he did something behind the scenes that no one knows about. But this season and Baker's rookie season, it's pretty clear that Higgins and Baker have a special connection, and you have to keep that around. I don't care if Higgins is like a wide receiver or like a third best wide receiver on the team. You have to just keep him around, especially if it keeps Baker happy.
Yeah, and there's just guys that fit your offense. He fits what this offense does. He doesn't mind blocking. He will. Some guys aren't built to block 30 times a game. He doesn't mind doing that. He doesn't mind being the guy in slot, playing, being outside guy in a slot screen and coming in and blocking somebody, and takes pride in it, does the little things. Yeah, it doesn't have to be crazy money, and he doesn't have to be your number one receiver by any stretch of the imagination. But guys who produce for you, guys who fit in, guys your quarterback finds with a high consistency level and a high passer rating, you just gotta keep him, man. There's no reason to try to replace that guy. And it's a guy Cleveland fans love too, which also matters. So there's literally no downside to keeping Rashard Higgins an active part of this team and keeping him on the football field.
Yep, that's exactly what I say too. All right. I know we kind of recapped the last 4 weeks, but Browns went 4-0. They beat 4 teams that were not really – I guess Tennessee was a playoff team or is a playoff team, but the other 3 are But the Browns took care of business. That's all that matters. I mean, in years past, the Browns used to be that team where another team would say, well, it's just the Browns. It's just that. You know what I mean? So looking ahead, if the Browns take care of business, you say they go 2-2. They beat the 2 New York teams, lose to Baltimore and Pittsburgh. They're 11-5. What would be your ideal matchup in round 1 of the playoffs?
There's 2 matchups I'm drawn to. I think that playing Tennessee again would be fun. Cleveland matches up with them well. They're very familiar with the system Tennessee runs, and they're able to kind of gear their defense to stop what Tennessee does offensively. And Tennessee's defense is not very good. A lot of the things Tennessee struggles with, which are pressure rates and defending some of the things play action, are really poor toward the bottom of the league, and that's what Cleveland does really well. So I do think that Tennessee is an interesting draw. And also Buffalo. I think Buffalo would just be fun for multiple reasons. You get Josh Allen against Baker Mayfield. I thought last year's game was a lot of fun. A couple upstart franchises in terms of consistently pushing toward the next level of the NFL. Buffalo struggled for a long time, didn't make the playoffs. And then Cleveland obviously is trying to end their playoff drought this year. So two franchises and 2 fan bases that kind of mirror in that regard. And I've always enjoyed every interaction I've had with Buffalo, whether they're writers or they're fans or whatever. And like I said, the big storyline is Josh Allen and Baker Mayfield against each other. But Buffalo's defense, not that good. Certainly a defense that the Browns could score a lot of points on. Now, Buffalo's offense is very good. So it would be a high-scoring shootout type of game. And I think it would be a potentially a lot of fun. But anybody they match up with, if they match up with somehow Indianapolis comes back and wins that AFC South, that would be another fun rematch. There's a lot of really interesting games that they could play in the first round there, but I certainly would try like hell to avoid Kansas City. That's for sure. And if they somehow, some way found a way to rematch with Pittsburgh, that would also be a lot of fun. I'm just very interested in what Week 17 looks like, how much effort Pittsburgh's putting into that game, and how the Browns stack up now that they're a little bit more confident, a little bit more cohesive in what they're doing on both sides of the football.
Back-to-back games against the Steelers would certainly be interesting, especially if the Steelers play all their guys and try to win Week 17. It'd be weird, but it'd be interesting just because you don't want to show too much in Week 17, but you also, for the Browns, you might need to win if you want a better seed or whatever. So yeah, but yeah, if I was given 2 teams, I'd say the Titans and Bills too. An interesting thing, one of my buddies lives up near Buffalo and is a huge Bills fan, and he texted me and said, hey, I want the Browns in the playoffs. And I was like, really? And he was like, actually, no, I don't. Because he was like, yeah, our defense stinks, and Nick Chubb would run all over us. And I was like, please, give us Buffalo, especially in Buffalo. 2nd week of January, that could be like a foot of snow up there. I feel like that could favor the Browns big time. Slow down.
I think too, man. This is what teams are afraid of, and why Tennessee's a good matchup for Cleveland. Because if you play a team similarly built to how Cleveland plays football, and you fall behind quickly, you fall behind nothing like we saw, you have to change a lot of what you are. You get out of your system of comfortability, even if it's just 10-0. We saw Tennessee have to throw 3 straight times in that situation, 3rd and longs. All of a sudden, you punt it back to Cleveland. Now it's 17-0. Cleveland has a way, man, with this structure that teams are really afraid of falling behind them early, because if you do, that means you have to rely on throwing the football in a predictable fashion, and then you got to deal with 95, and you got to deal with Olivier Vernon. You got to deal with a bunch of different things that Brown can get pressure on the quarterback. So pay very close attention to that with Baltimore this weekend, as both teams don't want to fall behind. Those teams know that if they fall behind too far, that's not what they want to be from an identity standpoint. So Cleveland will certainly look to get back out in front early against Baltimore and make Lamar have to throw consistently to bring them back into the game. And that is always the most compelling part, is the recipe for Cleveland wins is, like I said, getting out early and letting your running game close out the whole thing. And I think that we will see Cleveland try to do that this Monday for sure. Try to jump out as quickly as they can in the first quarter and let their defense just do enough to win.
Yeah, not only is getting out with an early lead important for the Browns, considering they have Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt, but I feel like Baker is a completely different player when he's confident. And like this past weekend, he dominated early on, so he was super confident, and it just showed. I mean, I guess every professional athlete is probably better when they're confident, but for a guy like Baker, when he can be like that, when he has like that cockiness edge and can just go out there and do whatever he wants and knows that he can do whatever he wants, he just plays so much better and so much differently.
Yeah, for sure. He's a confident quarterback. If he feels like he's got good protection in front of him and he feels rhythm, flow of structure of a game, he feels like he's got a feel for what the defense is doing, he's a different quarterback, man. And the biggest thing for Baker and the Browns is keeping him clean, keeping pressure away from him as much as they can. If they do so, like we saw in Tennessee, he's as good as it gets. And the data has shown us over the last 5 weeks, since he's gotten into a structure that he feels most comfortable with and on the same page with his play caller, he's been dangerous. So that's Baker when he's comfortable. Is a different dude, and he can rip it as well as anybody in the NFL. So that's the biggest positive trend moving into the last quarter here.
Yeah, I mean, Baker, the cockiness was getting a little old last year, but I love it this year, especially now that the Browns are winning. Like, I watch Baker Mayfield commercials, and I laugh now. Last year, it's like, dude, get off these commercials and watch some film. But yeah, I mean, the Browns are 9-3, so the outlook completely changes, I guess. But it's just weird that we are in mid-December, well, I guess early December, and we're talking playoffs. It is just, I don't think it'll sink in until the first 5 minutes before the kickoff, and hopefully the first Browns playoff game in 12 years. Or whatever it's been.
Yeah,
I don't even know.
It's very 2020, man. It's unfortunate that the fans can't pack the stadium like we saw. Like, think about Monday night, how crazy that atmosphere would be at First Energy Stadium watching that game. It'd be nuts, man. But you can't complain. Everybody's the goal is to keep people safe, and if you could tell me you could have a good season, I wouldn't care whether I could be at the game or not. I would just prefer that they have some success, and hopefully they can make this a long-term thing so that people come next year and pack the stadium and watch them. And there's no reason to think it can't be. So, yeah, a lot of fun for everybody involved. And although it kind of stinks that you can't be in the stands watching or down in the Muni lot getting ready for it, it's still fun. Even with your sitting at home watching, it's still a heck of a lot of fun. But it is crazy. 2020 is the ultimate upside down, and it's neat to see it. We're in rare football territory. I haven't been here in my life watching this team that I can really remember. So it's neat. It's neat to see, and I'm just enjoying it, man. And everybody should be enjoying it.
I'm finally proud to say that I'm a Browns fan. Usually it's like, you're a Browns fan? Oh, dude, that stinks for you. It's just, I don't know. It's just such a weird feeling that the Browns are not only 9-3, but I mean, I guess it is. Yeah, it is that the fact that they're 9-3. It just sounds weird to say that. But looking ahead to the final 4 games of the regular season, besides getting healthy and staying healthy, what are you most looking at to get not only improve as a team, but what are you going to be keeping an eye on? I guess I'd say.
For me, it would probably be how well they're running the football to close out the year. It obviously health is a large factor, but it's going to be how well they're able to run the ball, and then how well Baker's able to play against some defenses who know him very well and provide some of the things he struggles with, the pressure stuff. Especially the 3 of the next 4 defenses are pretty good. So It's going to be how well he's able to navigate pressure and predictable pass situations. So as much as I can see of Baker handling some of those situations where teams know he's throwing and put some pressure on him and he still is able to make some plays, that would be the biggest thing I'd like to see as we end the year. But keeping him hot, keeping him confident going into the playoffs is so important. And I'm sure they're going to try to, as they get close to maybe perhaps clinching, that they can keep him rolling. So that'll be the most important thing for sure.
I guess also the most important thing for me is that I actually have faith in the head coach. I think Kevin Stefanski will do everything that needs to be done in order to prepare this team for a playoff, not only a playoff run, but get them to maximize their potential the final 4 weeks to get them ready for the playoffs as well.
Yep, absolutely. I think he'll do. We've seen him kind of have a chess game going on where it feels like he's steps ahead of thought process. He steps ahead of keeping some tendencies in check. There's a lot that they can still do the rest of the way, and a lot they can keep hidden for some of those games, the important games they have coming up at the end of the year. So I am quite confident in where Kevin Stefanski has this team, and quite confident that he has a lot in his pocket to play as well too. So yeah, it's weird, man. We're living in a weird time where we feel this confident in our football team, but there's no reason to not be confident in them right now. So should be fun.
I was just going to wrap this up, but you just brought up tendencies. Last Sunday, it was awesome to see so many tendencies that the Browns have been doing. Like when DPJ had that double move for a 75-yard touchdown, the Browns had 3 tight ends on the field. So it was like, oh, the Browns are going to run it. And then DPJ beats them for a wide open touchdown. And then on the Kendall Lamb touchdown, it was I don't think it was a single wide receiver on the field, and Kareem Hunt and Nick Chubb both in the backfield. It was like, oh, the Browns are going to run this. And then they roll out a offensive lineman for an easy touchdown. It's just cool to see all the little wrinkles that Stefanski is continuing to add. Especially, he's adding screen passes, which we have been hoping for all along, but those are becoming very successful lately as well.
For sure. They'll keep trying to break tendencies. They haven't done very much play action from the shotgun. They've only thrown 4 play action shotgun passes this year. You're right. They'll keep doing more and more with personnel groupings. You saw the Browns go from under center to pre-snap shift to the shotgun, from pre-snap shift to under center. They want to make teams put a ton of linebackers on the field and be prepared for throw, and then run, and then put a ton of linebackers on the field and be prepared to be run and be throwing. They got 3 tight ends who can do multiple things that they're not afraid to put outside, not afraid to put in the line of scrimmage and block, and that's a rare thing, and that's something that really challenges defenses all the time, is making sure they have the right personnel on the field to battle what the Browns are putting out there, and it's unique in how they go about it. So, yeah, I expect them to keep breaking tendency the rest of the way, but not so much in a fashion that they still don't have some bullets left in the chamber come the playoffs. So it'll be fun to track. I think we'll see more creativity in the next 4 weeks, but like I said, don't be afraid to feel like they're vanilla sometimes, because when they jump out on some teams, they're not going to put a ton of film out there that's going to give away a lot of stuff they want to do the rest of the way. So good stuff with Stefanski and that whole offensive staff. It's been exciting, and the Browns defense is willing to do some different things too, and that's exciting as well. They put a 5-man front out there a lot of the game on Sunday, so we're not going to let Derrick Henry beat us. They're going to keep fiddling around defensively, and I expect them to be real creative in how they try to confuse Lamar.
Yeah. I just watching these games, it's like, holy cow, the Browns can outcoach a team. It's just, I'm not used to, as a almost 30-year-old, I'm not used to Browns being able to outcoach team. Not only outcoach them, but just dominate them on all facets of the game. So make it short and sweet, though, Jake. Final 4 games. The Browns are currently 9-3. They play Baltimore, the 2 New York teams, in Pittsburgh. What will be the Browns' final record at the end of the regular season?
I'm going to go 12-4. I think they win 3 of these games. I think they win the 2 in New York and they steal this Baltimore game. They don't steal it; they just win it. And then Pittsburgh game maybe has a lot more on the line than we think it does, and maybe it gets a little tight. So I'm going 3-1. It could be any variation of that, but I think they win 3 of the next 4.
Man, if fans were allowed in the stadium, well, a full set of fans were allowed in the stadium for it to be a sellout, and the Browns were 11 and. Well,
they could be 12-3 going into that game, man.
12-3 entering the Pittsburgh game. Holy cow!
I'm telling you, man, it would be wild. I hope that the amount that they let in keep going crazy, because they've been actually pretty loud. They've done a nice job that has been allowed into the stadium. So that every little bit helps. But yeah, it'd be so crazy to think about 65,000, 70,000 people in the stands for that game. It'd be raucous.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, especially not only racking if it was any other team, but it's Pittsburgh in week 17. So it would be crazy. But on with that. 12-4. I kind of dig that. I think they'll win this week too and then beat the two New York teams. I'm not going to say anything about Pittsburgh because it's hard to, if Pittsburgh's going to be fighting for the number one seed, they might play all their guys or they might sit Big Ben and those guys. So yeah, but I think they will also be 12-3 entering week 17, which is just weird as a Browns fan. It's weird to think that the Browns could realistically be 12-3 entering the final week of the regular season. But Jake, thanks again for joining us. I guess we will be talking to you. It's weird in 4 weeks, so we'll be talking to you in 2021.
That's funny. It's weird to think about. Hopefully, we have a really fun game lined up that week when we do get together. So, as usual, brother, thanks for having me on. And yeah, as usual, also go Browns.